So you have a minute probably. Okay, let's go ahead and start making something. Today we're going to design, not design actually, we're going to model an existing building, which is the Danish Pavilion, which was made in the 2010 Shanghai Expo by big architects. And we're going to look at the building and then try to model it as is. As in, not exactly as per the dimensions, but by understanding what the morphology is and trying to break it down and then build the shape bottom up. So when I say bottom up, I don't mean that like you're going to take a picture of it or the drawings of it and then you're going to put it on your Rhino and then you're going to trace it. No, none of that stuff. So by bottom up, I mean you're going to look at the geometry, understand how it is, how it behaves, what shapes are sort of combining together to make that final shape, and then try to make it with the tools that we have learned so far. We'll be mostly using all the tools that we have learned so far. There might be one or two more additions. Uh, in that case, I'm going to use this building as an example to make, to use those tools. So let's go ahead and start off. So you can look it up as well, but I have it here on my screen and I have shared it. So this is the building that I'm talking about. You might already know about it if you are from an architecture background. If not, probably you have seen it in some magazines or something. It has been quite famous, and it's been constructed and blah 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 and all of that stuff. So this is what it looks like. I would highlight one of the images to understand the geometry, the morphology behind it, and then how we're going to make it. So as you can see in this image that's there over here, I'm displaying it. So you have one direction and then you have something that is similar to a Mobius curve. A Mobius curve is a geometrical shape which has a loop, a double loop that is sort of an infinity loop. So the best examples would be something like Penrose staircase from Escher, the painter who used to draw illusions. So this is a geometrical shape which has been converted into something that is an architectural form. So that's what it is. It's like a Mobius strip, and then the strip is sort of extruded, and that's when you have this thing. I will show some more images. Well, you can look at some more images as well to understand how it is. So just to see at it in the top view, it's like there is a circle over here and then there is another circle, and then those circles are connected in a weird way to each other to form this kind of a twisted shape. So if you look at it this way, yeah, this is also another way that someone has sketched this. It doesn't really look like this, but this is just a sketch. It's just an imagination of how it might be. It's like a fisheye kind of a sketch. So this is the shape. We will not be concentrating so much on the surface treatment over here. We will be dealing with it after tomorrow's, the third session, because in the third session, we are going to see some tools in which we're going to learn how to manipulate surfaces on top of other surfaces and how to, extract some curves from surfaces and such. So I think you have some understanding of how this shape looks like. And now we will go ahead and make it. Okay, in I think around 6 or 7 steps. Okay, Let's hit it. Oops, sorry. So I'm just going to put this, all of this stuff that I have made inside a little layer, and I'm just going to hide that layer. Sometimes when I have projects which have a lot of data on them, what I do is I make a little layer that is called as trash. So I don't really delete everything. I put everything in a trash layer, and I switch it off, I lock it off. And if I find some objects while making things, if I find something that could be trash, I put it in the trash layer. So it's like potential trash. I'm not saying that it's deleted. So I will go into the layers ribbon, which looks like a little sector, and I'm going to say new layer. Okay, so that's that little button over here that creates a new layer. It by default names is a layer 001, but I'm going to name it as trash. Oops, I had another Rhino open. Yeah. So I have all of this trash. I'm going to make sure that I select everything, and I'm going to put it in this layer. There are several ways of putting things into layers. The easiest one, or the most common, is to select all the objects, right click on the layer and say change object layer. Okay, so my default layer was the one that was ticked. So everything that I was making was in the default layer, and that's the sort of workflow that I follow, that I make everything on the default layer, and when I have to segregate them, I select objects, I select things, and then put them in the right layer. So this is a workflow which is similar to 3D modeling softwares and not similar to AutoCAD as such, because in AutoCAD you would be probably designing in that layer itself, or drafting or modeling in that layer itself. But here you don't. You draft, you model, you do everything on the default layer, and then you put it into the layers that you want to segregate it into. So now it is all in the trash layer. I can change the color of this layer and keep it as anything, and so that it's visually identifiable for me. And I have just switched off the bulb on it, and it's all off. Okay, now I have a clean slate, sort of, because my trash is not yet dumped, but I have a clean slate in front of me. Okay, so the way we are going to approach this is by understanding the geometry, the shape, that is by taking care of the morphological evidence that we have of how this is sort of getting constructed in this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this shape first, the one that you see here, but I'm going to make it in single line, and then probably I'm going to make a line sweep around it to make this, and then I'm going to extrude it. So this is the basic logic that I have. To get to this point, I have to extrude something. So to get to step, what is it? Step 4 in this image, I'm going to make this little strip and then extrude it. Okay, I understand that. To get to this strip, I'll have to make something that is in a single line, and then I'm going to sweep that thing. So let's begin. Yeah, I'm here. So I'm just going to go in the top view now, and I'm going to make a circle, because I understand that this shape looks like two circles placed next to each other when you look at it in plan. So it's like there's one circle, and then there is another circle, and then there is this weird connection between them. So let's make the circle. So I say I typed circle, and I go to the origin point, and it needs a radius. So let's say I'm just going to give some radius. It's like 25 or something. Okay, it is 25. Yeah, it is 25. So this is a circle with a radius of 25, which I have made. As I understand from the image, there is another circle which shares the center on this circumference. So which means I'm going to make another circle that is placed at a distance of 25, like so. To do that, I just used the gumball. I pressed the red arrow and I typed 25. So now I have these two circles. This is how they look in the top view. I will go back to the perspective to understand how they are. I'm just going to type zoom selected like we did, like we saw yesterday. Zoom selected is ZS. Now it just goes there. And these are the two circles. So yeah, we have these circles, basic circles, which are put next to each other. Now, when we look at them and their connection, it seems as though at the diameter, they are connecting to each other this way, and they are sort of broken at this point, and then there is a little loop which is made in this way. Okay, so to do that, we will have to trim these circles in a certain way that they look as their constituent parts. Like we'll need something like this, and then the other circle which looks just like this. Okay, so let's do that. Before doing that, I'm going to draw some lines that are going to help me in trimming this geometry. So I just made the line, just going back to the top view, and I'm going to say trim. So trim is similar to a trim from your similar software such as AutoCAD. Here it very clearly, very intuitively says what is the cutting object. So yeah, this is the cutting object. And are you done selecting the cutting? Yes, I am. Now select the object to trim. Okay, this is what I want to trim. Okay, so it has been trimmed. I also want to trim this part. Okay, this and then this as well. So trim, select cutting objects, these two, and what do you want to remove? I want to remove these two parts. So now I'm left with this and this. Okay, so this is what I have. I'm just going to delete this helping line that I had. I don't need it anymore. So now I have this weird looking shape which we were speaking of, like this part and this part. So now we need some way to connect this to this part and then this to this part. Okay, yes, we are going to do that with something called as blend curve. Okay, blend curve is a tool to basically blend curves. So basically two curves. So I will show you how it is done in a slightly different way. So imagine I have a line here and I have a line here. So if I type blend curve, it says select the curve to blend. So I am clicking at the edge that is closest to the connection. So I want a blend curve somewhere here. So I'm going to click here and select the curve, other curve, which is here. So now it gives me an option of the connection that they are talking about. Okay. As you might remember from the discussions that we had yesterday about continuity, you can see that there are several options here that let you choose which kind of continuity, we are talking about. So this is the first point. The second point, the order in which we selected them. So if it is by position, it just connects it with a line and we have a polyline. If it's by tangency, it has these two handles and then they share the same tangency in a way that they are continuous. These handles are funny because you can sort of hold them and stretch them to get the curve in a slightly different direction. These handles are also very, very effective, but they are limited because this handle can only move in this direction. This handle can only move in this direction because it takes care of the tangency at all times. You can also say curvature, and here you get some more handles, but now you have some different kinds of handles which are moving in different directions, but there are two. And you can go on and make this curve more continuous in a way that you have those the curves that we were talking about yesterday. You can also say join the whole thing, trim it wherever possible. Another thing that is very important to look at here is the show curvature feature, where it shows how the curvature is getting affected. Like for example, if I keep it at position, the curvature is absolutely gone. If I keep it as tangency, this is the curvature. This is the actual smoothness of the curve. And if I bump it too bad, then you have these little anomalies between them. Okay, so just some understanding of how blend curve works. And the moment you hit OK, since I said join and trim and everything, it has given me one single curve where we have the whole thing with us. Okay, so I'm going to use the same logic to make a blend curve that's going to serve the purpose of what we want to do. Okay, so now I am okay. Bear in mind that I'm just operating in one plane, in the on the XY plane. The entire geometry is going on this plane, and whatever I'm going to do is going to happen in this plane. Like for example, for the previous case, if I had this guy at this height, so like they are at different heights, and now if I say blend curve, my blended curve is going to respect the height at which the other one is. If I have it at another orientation, it's going to respect that as well. Okay, so this is the real power of Rhino, because it lets you form these connections that are related to geometric continuities. Okay, so I'm just going to hit OK, and we have this. I'm just going to delete it, and let's go back to the Danish Pavilion. So we understand that what we're going to do is blend curve for this edge and this edge, so it will make something like that, and blend curve for this edge and this edge, which will make something like this, which is exactly what we want. But we have to understand the fact that both the circles are not at the same height. Like although in plan they look as if they are right next to each other, but they are not really. One of them is slightly placed above than the other. Like as you see in this image, one circle is lying over here, whereas the other is over here, and the connections are the ones which are breaking the cycle. So this is in one plane, this is in another plane. So that is an observation that we have found in the geometry, and we are going to try to capitalize on that observation. So I'm going to go ahead and move this guy by some degree. So let's say I'm going to move it by 12.5. That's the half of the circle. So this guy is now situated here, and this one is here. Now let's blend. So I'm going to blend this point and this point. Now you can see that, okay, it's being made. There is something that's going to happen there. But the problem is, it's going too far. I don't want it to go that far. I can take it a few notches down. Also, I'm making sure that both of them are placed at the same continuity level. I don't want too many handles at this stage, so I'm going to say just place it at tangency. Don't place it at position, because then I won't have anything. It's just going to be a single line. So I have it at tangency, and I'm going to make them more or less at the same level, and still sort of try to make the circle that it was before. maybe a few notches down, and this one as well. Okay, so we have the entire shape. I'm not going to join it because I still want to do the other bit, so I don't want to join it yet. I can join it by myself. So I'm going to say okay, and we have the first part over here. Now let's take care of the second one. I'm going to say blend curve, again blend curve, and this time I'm going to click close to the other edge and the other edge. So as you can see, it is already creating something, but that's really small. I mean, this is not what we are looking at. We want it to be bigger. It needs to go to this length, somehow taking care of the same distance at all the points. So I'm going to add a few more handles, and I'm going to make it big. Again, trying to maintain the subtle symmetry that it has. Yeah, this seems more or less okay. Well, as you might notice that I am taking decisions randomly, and I'm just placing things at my whims and fancies, and I'm using my intuition in a lot of ways. But I don't want to mimic exact dimensions. I just want to make the shape in the way that it is. Okay. So that's where the whole thing is. You can, like, in the middle of the command itself, you can switch on different views and you can see how it looks. If it's fine, yeah, it looks quite fine to me. And I'm going to hit OK. Okay, so until this step, I want you guys to go ahead and do it on your part and tell me if you're getting stuck anywhere. Although this is made, although this is done, this part is done, I'm going to start off here again so that you can do it with me. So let's do it again. I'm going to make a circle of, I don't know, 25. Move the circle by using the gumball, as in copy the circle by the same amount that the radius was, which is 25 again. So we have two circles, and now I'm going to make a line across the diameters so that I can trim them. To trim, I can go in any view, and I'm going to say select the cutting object. Okay, this guy, and the objects to trim all of this. Okay, then I want to take care of this part as well. So trim, again select the cutting objects, both of these, and what do I want to trim? This thing. Oops. Yeah. And that is done. Now I'm going to move this guy by, let's say, 12.5. I'm just taking some dimensions, like half of what we had before. So 12.5, and it gets moved up. And now I'm just going to say blend curve. This edge and this edge, and keep it at tangency. Go to the top view maybe to take care of it in a much professional way. Yeah, somewhere over there, and maybe somewhere over here. Well, you can make more guidelines to make it look exactly as a circle and such, but right now I'm not following those guidelines. So because it is like just understanding the geometry and reproducing it. But some thumb rule is that I'm going to keep them as symmetric as possible. So blend curve on the other edge as well, this time with few more handles. So it goes this way and this way. And I hope that they don't look like, yeah, this is more symmetrical. and we have this. Okay, so has everyone got it until that step? Okay, cool. Is everyone done? If you guys are done, you can just say yes, I'm done, or yeah, let's assume that everyone is done. If you have any doubts, you can just raise your hand or put it on the Q&A. Okay, so moving on. Now that we have the curve, the major hurdle is taken care of. Most of the geometries, most of the shapes, you just have to take care of the construction curves. Once you have those construction curves made, the next job is just making surfaces on top of them by the ways that we saw before. So like yesterday's entire session was focusing on how to make those curves in a more healthy way. Today's session also expands on that idea, but the next part of it is also about making those surfaces to fill those curves, the construction curves and the points. So now that we have got the tough part out, the curve is made. Now we just need to make this strip. So to make the strip, we're going to use the command that we saw today, sweep one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one little line over here, and then I'm going to say sweep along this whole thing. But we're going to take care of something while doing the sweep. So let's see what that is. Okay, so I'm going to make the line first. I'm going to say line. I have made sure that my midpoint object snap is on. So I'm going to start with this point. And I'm just going to make a line that somehow at some point might touch this, but it's not really very close. So that's where that goes. Now I can see it in perspective. It looks like this. I have deliberately made the line over here and not at some other place because I want to see how long it really needs to be. I don't want to make it too long that it cuts into the geometry. So like this is the point at which it comes closest sort of to the other part of the curve. So the Mobius strip is a Mobius strip because it does not cut into itself. It just moves in the whole infinity orientation. So I'm just going to sweep it now. I know that this is my rail. Oops, I have my rails which are not connected to each other. Yeah, we have to take care of this part because if at this point we say this is the rail, it's just going to sweep this much, and we don't want that. We want it to sweep for the whole thing. So we have to join this whole collection of curves that we have. So to do that, I'm going to say join, select objects to join. So I'm going to select this, then the next, then the next, and the next. And the moment that the whole thing is done, it says 4 curves joined into one closed curve. So this is one closed curve now. Many of us sometimes just select the whole thing and then type join. Well, it can get the job done, but if there are some issues while joining, like if there are some points which are not really snapping into each other, then it's not going to join. And at the end of it, it's going to say the join failed or something like that. You don't really want it, because if you choose them one by one, it's going to tell you, hey, this doesn't really join. They are not connected. Do you want me to make something over there? And then you can say, yeah, go ahead, just make something. Or if it's not, if it's an issue, you can just zoom right in and say blend curve or something and make whatever you want. So in this case, We don't have that issue because we said join and then we joined it. You can also see how the control points are placed. They are slightly similar to the points that we had in the blend curve. Okay, so we have one single curve, one single rail, and we have the cross section with us. So let's sweep. I'm going to say sweep one because there's just one rail. Sweep one, select the rail, and then select the cross section, and we're done. Now comes the awesome part. Well, as you know that if the rail is going in a weird direction, your car is also going to move with the rail. But that's not what we want. That's not what the shape looks like. I mean, people are going to walk on this, and people are going to have their bicycles on it. So we want it to be flat. So we want it to be road-like. The moment you say road-like, it is flat. And you can rebuild it or not. It's all up to you. But if you rebuild it, it's going to have uniform, almost sort of uniform control points for the whole thing. So I'm going to say that, and I'm going to hit OK. So we have the strip, and the strip is very smoothly connected. It has the same kind of morphology that we have seen in the images. It looks similar to this, as in it has the same building blocks. So obviously it looks similar to that. And now the next step is as easy as it goes. We're just going to say extrude, but in this case, we're going to say extrude surface and not extrude curve, because the command applies to the both of them. So when you extruded a curve, it was just a curve which was extruded. But in this case, it's going to be a surface which is extruded. So we say extrude surface, extrude SRF. And I'm going to select the surface and then hit space. So now it's asking me, do you want it to be solid? Do you want it both sides? Do you want to delete the input? All the questions. So I'm going to say yes, delete the input. Yes, keep it solid. And the extrusion distance, I'm going to say something similar to the move dimensions that I had moved it by 12.5, if you remember. So I'm not going to keep the extrusions exceeding 12.5. So it's going to be something like 10, so that it doesn't, crash into the other part and there is still some space left. So I'm going to say 10, and there we go. So there it is. It is not crashing into it, and it looks similar to what it is. Well, it's not exactly detailed as the final geometry as a building, but the shape is there. And now the things that are added onto it are just functional requirements that are like, okay, railings, okay, some entry and exit points. But one important aspect of the building is the openings, the pattern that you have on the surface outside, and we're going to see it in more detail in the next session. So the commands that we have seen today were very many and related to surfaces. We saw extrude, we saw revolve, we saw the sweeps, we saw loft, and we have done this example in the most minimal steps as possible, where we did not trace the geometry, but we understood it and we tried to mimic the process in which it was made. And this is how we got it. Well, when I say that we made it in this process, it doesn't mean there is just one process to make this geometry. You can make it in several different ways. And I would sort of, in the time that you have until the next session, I challenge you to come up with different ways in which you could make this geometry. Maybe fewer steps if you could. But don't try to get into the details of adding railings and stuff. Well, if you want to practice, you can go ahead and add railings. I mean, it's going to be fairly simple because you have the curve here that was used as the sweep. You could just put it on top, just put a pipe on it, add some more curves. You can decorate it as much as you want, but you can see if you can find another way of making this geometry. As a practice, I would also suggest you to make another building that uses most of these tools that we have seen today. It also uses some tools that you might know from other softwares like Array, like modifying tools where you orient some geometry, where you make some curves. So it's not going to be absolutely different from what we have done today, but using mostly the similar tools. The building is this one. It's the oceanographic that I was talking about yesterday. It's an aquarium in Valencia, designed by Felix Candela. So you can I'm just going to type it on the broadcast. By Felix Candela. So you can practice the tools that you have learned today and also try to come up with a different way in which you can make this building again. Okay, so if you have any doubts, you can ask now, because we are sort of at the end of today's session. And as a summary, I would say that we are yet to see some more challenging things in the next session, where we will see how to extract geometries from existing geometry, and how to also modify surfaces to get into different kinds of tools and commands, such as twist and bend and flow along surface and those kind of tools. We will also model a hypothetical building while we are practicing and while we are learning these tools. So, and also we will get back to the Danish Pavilion, where we will fix the surface on top of it, and we will make it look as much as the original. Okay, so if you guys have any doubts, you can raise your hands now. Or in 5 minutes, no, not 5, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, we're just going to wind up. Okay, so I'm going to assume that, or if you do, probably someone's typing. I don't know. Okay, I think no one has any doubts. Probably you'll have some more doubts on Friday. That's when the next session is going to be. The next session will be hosted at the same times as it was today. I mean, it'll start at 11 in the morning at Central European time over here. And the next one, that is 3.2, will be hosted at 4 p.m. I think some of the attendees from India have requested that it could be hosted 30 minutes later. So that's why we started today's session at 4:30 to 6 as it is now. So we would probably have the same kind of schedule, but whatever it is, it will be informed to you via email and whatever other IM platforms that you're on. So keep your eyes out on your email, and if you have any doubts regarding the schedule as well, ask the moderators, ask us, and we will help you out in every way possible. Okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you guys in the next session. Bye. Have a good one.